Good morning, everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank Santosh sir for making me part of this session. So in this session, I'll take you through a spectrum of corneal diseases. It's a PG-centric talk. So I want all the postgraduates to have the differential diagnosis in their mind as and when I'm sharing the picture. So we'll start off with a very common case. Case one has circumcorneal congestion, a dry, dirty-looking central corneal ulcer with an elevated epithelial plaque surrounding corneal edema and a thick dome-shaped hyperpion. So many times we get all these cases of keratitis for exams, bacterial keratitis, fungal keratitis, and you can have mixed forms too. Many times we see the postgraduate starting off with an ocular examination and missing other findings. So what is important and what I would like to stress upon is you have to do a thorough ophthalmic evaluation. And whenever you see a case of keratitis, the three lines of defense should come to your mind. So you start off with the bony orbit, the lids and the lashes. So you look for proptosis, you look for entropion, ectropion, lag of thymus, meibomitis. The second line of defense, the precorneal tearfil. You look for any ocular surface abnormalities. And the third line of defense, the corneal epithelium. So you look for any pathologies which can cause recurrent corneal erosions or it can be compromised the neurotrophic keratopathy. So the documentation has to be in this, the documentation has to be in this order. So even the negative findings have to be documented. Then only the examiner will know that you look for it. Suppose, even if there are no blisters, you have to document, you have to examine the face and say there is no evidence of any lesions of herpes zoster. That way the examiner will know that you've looked for it. And the grading of corneal ulcer has to be done methodically. And Dr. Deepti showed the ways to draw a corneal diagram. You should draw a proper corneal diagram with color coding. And these two features are very important, the depth of the infiltrate and the scleral involvement, because based on this, the treatment management, the management algorithm can change. Before going for exams, you should all be familiar with the MUT1 and 2 trial by Prashna sir et al. So it's a mycotic ulcer treatment trial 1. It's an RCT comparing natamycin versus orokinesol. And it concluded that natamycin is superior to orokinesol in the treatment of filamentous fungal keratitis. It also said that orokinesol cannot be used as a monotherapy and it can be used only as a combination therapy in deep-seated keratitis. You should also be knowing about the MUT2 trial where they say that systemic antifungals have more use in endophthalmitis and scleral involvement. You should also know the TSD protocol by Namrata Sharma ma'am and others. So the paper gives you clear indications as to when to use a systemic antifungal drugs, topical targeted therapy like intracameral orokinesol and intrastromal orokinesol. So you should go through that. I'm sure you'll all be very familiar with the classification of fungus. This is what we are focusing on for keratitis, but you can have these causes too. Now you should also remember the non-septate filamentous fungi because mucormycosis is the in thing now, and mucorales belongs to non-septate filamentous fungi. It doesn't cause keratitis though. Pythium insidiosum was previously classified as fungus until it was discovered that the cell membrane does not contain ergosterol. I would like to acknowledge Prajna sir for this picture in payment. So you can see the characteristic features of Pythium keratitis in this. It's a full thickness corneal infiltrate. You can see tentacular projections and small pinpoint-like infiltrates and an early limbal spread and peripheral gutter, which are very characteristic features of Pythium keratitis. So when do you suspect it? You treat the patient thinking it's fungal keratitis with antifungal drugs and it doesn't respond, then you should think of Pythium keratitis. But if you pick it up early with these findings, maybe you can start the patient on linezolid and oral azithromycin. Coming to case 2, we have this case case 2 has an elevated conjunctival lesion. You have this papuliform type of lesion, which is encroaching onto the limbus and to the cornea. You can see some feeder vessels here. I'm sure you all have the diagnosis. It's ocular surface squamous neoplasia. So there can be different morphological variants. You can have leukoplakic variant where you have a hyperkeratinized epithelium, gelatinous, nodulo-ulcerative form, pigmented OSN. Now this pigmented OSN can be a differential diagnosis for melanoma also. And once we got a case where we thought it is pigmented OSN, I mean, it looked like that, dementatious fungi. Among certain pearls that I would like to stress upon is you have to delineate the lesion with rose bengal, gonioscopy has to be done, and regional lymph node examination has to be done because 15% of cases can have a local recurrence and they can have a lymph node metastasis. Imaging has to be done for these cases along with the systemic workup. And anterior segment OCT is very essential to document the depth of the lesion. You can see the hyperreflective corneal epithelium. You can see the transition zone. You can see the stromal involvement. So it's very essential to document the depth of the involvement. Biopsy is the gold standard for diagnosis, and you can, it's an umbrella term. So you should be able to differentiate between a CIN, a carcinoma in situ. A carcinoma in situ, all the layers are involved, but then there is no breach in base membrane. And in invasive squamous carcinoma, you have a breach in the base membrane. So that's the basic difference. So after you've established the diagnosis, you should go about with the Shields no-touch technique. So what we do is in alcohol keratoepithelectomy, you mark the margins, 2 mm margin, 4 mm margin for the conjunctiva and tenons, do the conjunctiva tenonectomy, lamellar sclerectomy if it's a deep OSSM, 0.2 millimeters, and you have to do a double freeze-thaw cryotherapy to prevent recurrence. And it's proven that this technique can actually prevent recurrence, and you cover the ocular surface with an amniotic membrane grafting. This is how you send it for a histopathological examination. You draw the diagram and you lay the tissue on the diagram. So the pathologist can give you whether the margins are positive or the margins are negative. In non-invasive, you just, if it's a negative margin, you just need to follow it up. This is from Santosh Sir's paper in IGO. It's an old paper, but I think it still holds good. If there is a positive base, then you have to go for a plaque brachytherapy. And when do you use pre-op adjuvant chemotherapy like mitomycin or interferon alpha? When you have a visual axis involvement and when you have a huge lesion where you can have more than 6 clock hours of involvement. Then if you're going to remove the lesion, you will end up with a limbal stem cell deficiency. And that's when you use chemo reduction with topical mitomycin or interferon alpha. Coming to case three, we have a case of limbal stem cell deficiency here. Now, why do we say it's limbal stem cell deficiency? You can see some corneal neovascularization. You can see some positive fluorescent staining. You can see the loss of clarity. So, so we say it's limbal stem cell deficiency. Now, what could be the cause? It is probably vernal keratoconjunctivitis. You can see the Horner-Trantas dots here. Essential to do invert the upper lid and document the palpable conjunctiva findings in this format. Hyperemia, swelling, follicle, papillae, giant papillae, how many papillae are there, and Horner-Trantas dots, how many dots are there. Essential to document in that way. Now, this is a case of VKC with severe limbal stem cell deficiency. We can have a spectrum of the disease. You can have a mild variant, a mild follicular reaction. You can have papillae, moderate papillae, giant papillae. You can have shield ulcers, and sometimes you can get infected also. So we use the step-ladder approach for treating VKC. We can start off with mast cell stabilizers and then topical cyclosporin or tacrolimus. And this case wouldn't have gone for a limbal stem cell deficiency if the patient had been put on systemic steroids and topical tacrolimus or cyclosporin. So it's very essential to start systemic steroid, systemic immunosuppression in severe cases of VKC. Case 5, you have this, this is all sequelae of chemical injuries, again, limbal stem cell deficiency. But these are not acute cases. We have limbal stem cell deficiency. Again, you have loss of corneal clarity. You can have stromal opacities. You can see the lime deposits here. And this one is a severe symblepharon. So these are all sequelae of chemical injuries. All the postgraduates should be knowing the DeVas classification, the Ropahal classification thoroughly, and the management protocol for chemical injuries. And this case was a case of unilateral chemical injury where you can see the fibrovascular pannus and the symblepharon. So it is almost a near total limbal stem cell deficiency, but it was unilateral, and so we decided to go ahead with stem cell explants from the other eye. Thanks to Dr. Sangwan sir for this procedure. So you can see an auto sled being done for this case, and the cornea is clear after about 6 to 7 months. And if there is a bilateral chemical injury, then we need to do an allosled with cadaveric stem cell explants. And those patients have to be put on immunosuppression before the treatment as well as after the treatment. Case 5, we have a limbal dermoid. You can see the whitish mass with sebaceous components. Now it's there in the infratemporal quadrant, which is supposed to be the more commonest location for dermoid. You can also see the sebaceous components. Now this is like grade 1 to grade 2 limbal dermoid because it's more than 5 millimeter, but it's not like it's just occupying 1/3 of the cornea. It's not more than 1/3 of the cornea. So when do we operate? So usually we treat it conservatively. You can remove the cilia, just give some symptomatic improvement, tear substitutes and glasses, because these children will definitely have astigmatism, but you have to measure the amount of astigmatism. And if it is more than 1.5 diopters, probably we have to take the patient for an excision biopsy with a lamellar patch graft. So this case, this was one ophthalmic image which we published, where you can see the preauricular tax, the upper lip coloboma, situs inversus. It's basically an oculo-auriculovertebral dysplasia. It's a choristoma. Again, that question also is a favorite for examiners. We can leave the lamellar transplant like this, or we can, some surgeons tattoo it. I haven't been tattooing it. Case 6, you can see some crescent-shaped inflammation, almost 270 degrees, juxtalimbal cornea, and you can have adjacent episcleritis there. You can see 360-degree vascularization, thinning here, and iris tissue plugging the cornea. Now, it's very important to differentiate an infectious PUK from a non-infectious PUK. So the first investigation that you should do is a smear, rule out infectious causes, because then the management protocol differs. You should always manage a case of PUK with a rheumatologist after doing a complete systemic evaluation. Another important question, which is a favorite question for examiners, is why is it more common in the periphery? And these are the reasons for it. You have immunoglobulin M more in the periphery cornea, Langerhans cells and antigen-presenting cells, neutrophils, lymphocytes, mast cells and plasma cells more in the periphery. You also have 5 times higher levels of C1 in the peripheral cornea. So the surgical management, we can do a conjunctival resection to buy time so that from the periphery, all these mediators do not come in. You can also do a lamellar patch graft or sclerocorneal patch graft with amniotic membrane grafting and topical steroids or systemic steroids. For small sterile corneal perforations, we can even do a tuck and tenons. So we started doing tuck and tenons for small perforations, and it's been published in our Tamil Nadu journal. Case 7, I think Dr. Prafulla showed a lot of corneal dystrophies as well, where lamellar surgeries are being done. So these are all stromal dystrophies. You can see here breadcrumb-like deposits seen in the center of the cornea. So you have to see the periphery of the cornea. Sometimes you can even have a lamellar transplant. So you should look at the other eye. That's one thing that I would like to stress upon. Always examine the other eye, because the other eye can give you a clue. And you can also see the periphery also. So here it is clear, but in a macular dystrophy, the periphery is not very clear. And this is a lattice seen against retinal illumination. So you should always remember the mnemonic for deposits and stains and stomal dystrophies. Marilyn Monroe always gets her money in LA City. Why money instead of men? Because some examiners can be conservative. So you should remember this to remember about the deposits and the stains in stomal dystrophies. Case 8, this is just a corneal eye drops. You can see steep cornea with edematous cornea, steep cornea with edematous water collection, stomal edema. Anterior segment osity, there is a good paper by Sain-Besu, sir, about the anterior segment osity findings in corneal eye drops. Whether there is a DM break which is rolled out, which is flat, or whether there is aqueous pockets in it. So you can see the stomal edema, gross stomal edema with aqueous pockets in it. And just to buy time, probably, like, and to prevent the symptoms, to give a symptomatic relief, you can probably do a corneal compression sutures with pneumodesmotepexy or intracameral C3F8. I'm done. So it can leave a scar, and it can gives a symptomatic relief, and that way you can like postpone the keratoplasty. Thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I request the chairpersons to have a discussion regarding this talk, ma'am.
Is Dr. Basak saying something? Would you like to say something? Yeah, here I would just say that she has really given the whole cornea nutshell in 15 minutes, So all the different variety of cases, their presentation and possible histopath and what is typically which needs to be looked at. Very nice.